If you're watching this, I can kind of almost guarantee that you're overtraining in the gym. This is something which I had a huge problem with, especially in my journey, because when I first started off in the gym, I was super motivated and I just wanted to do more and more and more. And what happened was I started going to the gym 6 days a week, 7 days a week. Sometimes I would actually just go 2 days a week, and I would be going for 60 to 90 minutes each time I would do this. And what I found was that a lot of times when I was putting on too much volume and going 5, 6 days a week, what would happen was my strength would actually go down and I would just constantly feel fatigued. I kind of had my energy just sapped the whole time throughout, if not even in the gym, just throughout like life in general. Just felt like my energy was kind of sapped because I was putting all of it into these workouts in the gym. And I just felt like, in addition to that, I was just quite fatigued when going into these exercises. My strength was kind of just a lot lower than where it should be, and it wasn't progressively increasing like it should have been. And so what happened was is I just kind of got into this cycle where I just wasn't actually making any progress in the gym. I was training far too much, and it started to just backfire, and my strength kind of went down for a little bit. I just wasn't putting on that additional muscle that I wanted to. And I just realized after a period of time and after doing more research that I was actually massively overtraining. So if you're watching this and you're someone who's training maybe 5 to 6, maybe even 7 times a week, then this is probably the right video for you because it's actually a really high chance that you're actually overtraining in the gym. One of the biggest issues that a lot of people have is they're actually just too lazy to actually get in the gym. So this is kind of like a reverse effect of this where you're actually kind of the opposite. You're in the gym, you're motivated, you're pushing hard, and you're actually just doing it so much that you actually get to the point where you're actually just kind of overdoing it. So it's kind of like the opposite effect of what most people have, where so many people say that you're being fat phobic nowadays if you go to the gym just because to protect themselves because they're too lazy to actually get into the gym. And this is something which is just becoming more and more common. So I do actually understand overtraining is actually, it's just the complete opposite of that. However, unfortunately, it does get to the point where it's actually kind of counterintuitive and it's not going to really help you with your muscle journey. This is another thing which you see so many fitness influencers online talk about, which is kind of frustrating because they always push going to the gym 5 to 6 days a week, sometimes even 7 days a week. And the issue with a lot of these like modern fitness influencers is that a lot of them are actually enhanced. So they're taking steroids, they're injecting themselves with peptides and things that just completely enhance the body's recovery. Whereas for 99% of people who are hitting the gym who are actually natural, this is really, your body's just, if you're training with this much volume, your body's just not going to be able to function and it's not going to be able to go through that hypertrophy process properly that's going to lead to you building muscle. So the reason why you only actually need 3 workouts per week to build muscle, and you can build a ton of muscle on just 3 days per week, is just because your muscles don't need that much volume to actually tear in the first place and to actually go through this hypertrophy process. You can actually get a lot of the stimulus into your muscles that you need to build muscle off just 1 to 2 sets per muscle group. So if you think about this, if you're going to the gym and you're doing 3 sets per exercise and you're doing 3 to 4 exercises per muscle group and you're doing this and you're going to the gym 5, 6 days a week, what's going to happen is that the next time you go into the gym and you work the same muscle again, not only have you put in all this excess energy and time and effort into actually creating that muscle stimulus in the first place, which you could have done off a lot less exercises, is that in addition to that, because you've put in so much fatigue that's come out of this exercise, now you're going to be tired, you're not going to have your muscles fully recovered the next time when you go and hit the same muscle group again. So for example, if you're hitting chest and you did 12 sets on chest on Monday and then you go back in on Thursday, for example, a lot of the times is your chest is still not going to be fully recovered. And it's just going to lead to you, if your muscles haven't grown back fuller and stronger, how they should have, it's just going to lead to a scenario where you're actually just decreasing the amount of strength you're going to have. Your muscles haven't grown back, they're not going to be stronger, and you haven't gone through that hypertrophy process where they've grown back a lot fuller, and you're actually ready to go through and actually tear the muscle again and create that stimulus again. So instead of actually this being productive, it leads to a scenario where you're damaging the muscle, and then even though it fully hasn't healed yet, you're just damaging it again, which is just kind of creating this like downward cycle where you're not giving your body enough stimulus and enough time to actually just go through that recovery process, which is what's going to lead to you really putting on gains in a quick amount of time. So one thing you can do if you feel like you might be overtraining, and one thing which I've done recently, is just cut down your workouts to 3 days a week. So for me, this normally looks like one upper day on Monday, then one lower day where you're hitting legs and abs on Wednesday, and then on Friday I just hit another upper day. And what you'll find is you actually only need 2 to 3 sets per muscle group to actually create that stimulus and to actually tear the muscle to kind of trigger that hypertrophy process. So because of this, you can actually do quite a lot more with a lot less in these days when you hit the gym. So for example, on your first upper body day, what happens is you might just only do one exercise for chest, one exercise for back, and then a couple for arms and one for shoulders. So it might only be like 5 exercises total, 2 to 3 sets each. But what's going to happen is you're actually going to create enough stimulus anyway during these exercises, and you're not going to be as fatigued, and your body's going to be able to recover a lot better. So that in 4 days' time, when you go back to do the second upper body workout, you're actually completely recovered anyway. You haven't really overdone the amount of stress that you're putting the body under. You haven't gone through all this fatigue, and your body's actually fully recovered. Your muscles have grown back fuller and stronger, so that when you go back to the gym in 3 to 4 days' time, your upper body's going to be completely healed and actually ready to go again. And so this time, when you're creating that stimulus, what's going to happen is it's just going to lead to healing the muscle, which is already fully healed. It's going to lead to just tearing it again. And then next time you come back, it's going to be a lot stronger. And it's going to be a lot more efficient to train this way. So this is something which I've been implementing recently, dropping down to 3 days a week. And I've found that this is really beneficial for muscle growth. You can actually get a lot more done. And I've dropped down from 6 days a week where I used to do push-pull legs. I just found like this was way too stimulating and way too much pressure on the body, and it just wasn't actually productive. One analogy which I'll give you to make this stick is just kind of a sandpaper analogy. So think if you had sandpaper in one hand and you were kind of rubbing it on your skin, on one of your hands, what's going to happen to the skin is that the skin's just going to tear and it's going to be a lot weaker. However, if you give it like the proper amount of time to recover, I don't know how long it's going to take skin to heal, but let's just say it's 3 to 4 days, and it comes back and it's fully healed, and you actually wait till your skin's fully healed, your skin's going to come back a lot harder, a lot thicker, and a lot stronger, so that next time when you have the sandpaper and you rub over it again, you're going to kind of need more pressure on the muscle to actually create that tear again, or on your skin, sorry, to create that tear again. And the next time when you go back, if you give it that proper recovery, it's just going to keep getting a little bit stronger and a little bit harder each time you do this. So this is exactly what's happening in the gym with your muscle growth. You only really need a few sets per muscle group, and if you do this, it's going to create that tear in the muscles, it's going to create that muscle stimulus, and then with proper rest and recovery, next time you come back into the gym, you hit the same muscle group again, it's going to be properly recovered, and it's going to grow back a lot stronger, and this is kind of where you're going to find that you're going to be hitting your PRs in the gym quite a lot easier. It's just kind of going to come in just like perfectly now. You can just hit PRs every time you're going into the gym because your muscles are fully recovered and you're coming back stronger each time. If you want to check out my paid program, I'll link that down, first link in the description. It's got my push-pull legs workout routine, my upper-lower workout routine, and it's also got my diet plans, and I've also put together some modules which I'm going to put together over the coming weeks where I just go over the exact tips, techniques that you need, and some other tips that I have on working out and training in the gym. Another point that I want to raise is if you're going to the gym 5 to 6 days a week, it's actually just going to shatter your motivation to train. I've found that when I was going 6 days a week, 5 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, each time I would go to the gym, it just kind of felt more and more like a chore, and it just felt like it was just a drag. It was just something that I had to do, and just like a box I had to tick off for the day, just something that I really needed to get done. And it just felt like, in the end, something that I really liked so much. I just wasn't actually looking forward to it at all, and I wasn't enjoying it. So this is something to keep in mind. It's just the fact that if you do go to the gym 5, 6, 7 days a week, actually think to yourself and ask yourself, is this actually sustainable? Is this something which you're going to be able to do for the next 20 to 30 to even 40 years straight? Because going to the gym isn't just something which we want to do for a few years. It's something which is like a lifetime commitment to self-improvement, to getting better, to making sure your body's operating perfectly, and to just do the best job you can with yourself. So just remember that if you do go to the gym this often, eventually, maybe it might take a year, it might take 2 years, but eventually the fatigue's just going to start to increase, and just the level of motivation, the excitement and the enjoyment you're going to get from each exercise is going to go down, which can just lead to burnout and can lead to actually quitting in a lot of cases, which is the worst case scenario. So one final point I'll leave you for this video is, you've probably heard this saying before, but the saying less is more is actually really important, and it's actually quite relevant to muscle building. This is because if you're doing more and more and more, which is what so many people do when they start their gym journey, they just think that if I just keep increasing the amount of exercises I'm going to do on each muscle group and the amount of sets and reps that I do on each muscle group, it's just going to lead to me creating more muscle in a quicker amount of time. And the reality is that the more you do past a certain extent, for example, for each workout you should only really be doing 10 to 12 sets. And the more you do beyond this extent, it's actually just going to backfire on you, and it's just going to lead to you kind of like sapping your energy, creating more fatigue. It's not even going to help build the muscle because you've already kind of created that process in the first couple of sets anyway. And it's just going to lead to you being less strong, hitting less PRs, and it's just going to be so detrimental to your muscle growth. So if you want to actually make progress on your bodybuilding journey, and you found that you're currently at a plateau, maybe your strength is going down, maybe it stayed the same for a long period of time, just remember the saying less is more, and try and implement this into your workouts. Maybe experiment a little bit, cut down on a few exercises, or cut down on a few sets, and maybe cut down on how many times a week you're going to the gym, add in a couple extra rest days, and just see how your body feels, and see if when you go to the gym, you actually come back a lot stronger and a lot more motivated.